scary Peppa Pig episode that never made it on TV. It was a quiet evening at the Pig family house when Peppa noticed something strange about her reflection in the bathroom mirror. The reflection smiled back at her, but Peppa wasn't smiling. She blinked, and for a moment the reflection didn't blink back. George was playing with his toy dinosaur in the living room when he heard whispers coming from the walls. The whispers spoke in a language he couldn't understand, but somehow he knew they were calling his name. Mummy Pig was preparing dinner in the kitchen when all the family photos on the wall began to change. In each picture, the family's smiles became wider and wider, stretching beyond what should be possible. Their eyes grew darker, like empty holes staring back at her. Daddy Pig was reading his newspaper in his favorite chair when the words on the pages started rearranging themselves, spelling out messages that made no sense, yet filled him with inexplicable dread. That night, Peppa couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she could hear footsteps in the hallway. But when she looked, no one was there. The footsteps were small, like a child's, but they moved in a rhythm that didn't match any normal walking pattern. George's room was across the hall, and she could see his door was slightly open. Through the crack, she glimpsed something moving in the darkness that was too tall to be George. The next morning, the family gathered for breakfast, but something was wrong with their shadows. While they sat at the table eating, their shadows on the wall were standing up, moving independently, reaching toward each other with elongated arms. Peppa tried to tell her parents, but when she spoke, her voice came out as someone else's whisper. At playgroup, Susie Sheep noticed that Peppa's eyes had changed color overnight. They were still brown, but there was something else behind them, something that watched and waited. During playtime, all the toys in the room began moving on their own, arranging themselves in perfect circles around the children. The teacher, Madame Gazelle, smiled her usual smile, but her reflection in the window showed something entirely different. When the family returned home that evening, they found that their house had gained an extra room. A door that had never been there before stood at the end of the upstairs hallway. Behind the door, they could hear the sound of children playing, but the voices didn't belong to Peppa or George. The voices belonged to children who sounded exactly like them, but spoke words they had never said. As night fell, the Pig family realized they were no longer alone in their house. There were others now, others who looked just like them, but weren't quite right. These others lived in the mirrors, in the shadows, in the spaces between the walls. And slowly, very slowly, they were beginning to take over, one reflection at a time.